Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin. It is Tuesday evening, and we are excited. It is officially April, Glenn, the month. This has to be also one of the most fun months as an NFL fan, right? Like
Yeah.
It's the month to lead up, and at the end of the month you get the draft, and that's always a cool event. And certainly for us doing the show, that's fun. It's a good month. Certainly, it's full of optimism, excitement as an NFL fan, here as a Baltimore Ravens fan, and we are looking forward to it. And tonight, of course, we'll be walking through some mock draft scenarios with the one and only Jason Pruett from DRAFTPLEX. But before we get into that, as always, we got to shout out our sponsor. Glenn, I know that there's some new stuff going on with BetOnline. So if you could talk to us about it, what's going on, man? We're in the middle of March Madness. We're in the Final Four. There's all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing that's never going to change is BetOnline is going to continue to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Final Four is upon us, and BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to MLB, NHL, and even UFC, look, the Kentucky Derby's coming around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. Preakness is right around the corner, and NFL season futures are ready for you to bet on as well. In between games, head over to the online casino at BetOnline with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and a live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. And, Jimbo, you're right. I mean, not only is this an exciting time for all NFL fans, but, of course, like you mentioned, March Madness is still just finishing up with the Final Four coming up. Baseball is live and running. The Orioles are, off to a pretty decent start. 3-2 out of 3-2 in their first 5 games, with their next game coming tomorrow. But I mean, the NFL news is buzzing. We had the coaches meetings down in Florida this past weekend, and got to hear from John Harbaugh, amongst all the coaches, really. It was kind of interesting seeing some of the interviews, some of the clips from the interviews. I don't know if you saw the Mike Tomlin one, but he was sweating like he was sitting under a heat lamp to the point where fans are concerned. I mean, the dude was dripping sweat. It looked like a joke almost how sweaty this dude was when everyone else around him didn't appear to be. So hope he's doing okay. But John Harbaugh was asked quite a few questions. And so before we get into our mock drafts, I did want to get your take on a few things here, Jimbo. John Harbaugh was asked about Mark Andrews, and John made it clear that he expects Mark Andrews to be on this team, to be a key part of this offense next season, and basically made it very clear that he's not going anywhere for this year. He made no commitments for future years, but for this season, Mark Andrews will be a Raven. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I personally you've been pretty steadfast in your want for them to extend him, right? I feel like I've been all over the map on this, certainly after he dropped the pass. I was like, get him out of here. Or not that he dropped the pass, he had the fumble, everything else, right? Yeah. And then after that, I thought that they would keep him for this year, not rearrange the contract, take the hit, and just call it quits, right? Not call it quits, but like come to an impasse and move on. and then I never really thought that trade was a possibility because I feel like, I don't know, trades like this are just difficult to orchestrate, and they happen more in Madden than in real life. So I was just playing the odds on that one.
Yeah.
And then I went to where I wanted him to be, get an extension, because at the end of the day, everyone talks about likely, and it's no shade on likely. But what is the likelihood that likely then turns around and becomes the next Mark Andrews? That's just difficult to do, right? Like Mark Andrews is an incredibly productive player. Lamar Jackson's number one pass catcher since Lamar Jackson's been in the NFL. And a big reason why Lamar is a 2-time MVP. Not the only reason. Certainly Lamar deserves a lot of credit for that, but Mark has a lot to do with that. So all that being said, I think we're back to what I thought about this being the end of the road. This is the last year, is kind of how I perceived that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of bummed because actually I'd come around to wanting him to be extended as well. And today, I mean, certainly Coach very optimistic about this season, but it sounds like they're going to leave the contract as it is and let it play out.
Yeah. That's the only thing that is kind of questionable. It's like, so we're just fine with that massive cap hit. And I guess if there's no target, like if there's no guy that you're like, we got to have this guy, then I guess there's no need to extend or do anything. Just let it play out. But it's just surprising that type of cap hit that they're just okay with. But I guess that's the case. And Mark Andrews will be a big part of our offense next season. And I hope that his last memories in Baltimore, if next year is his last, won't be, him dropping the potential game tying pass. So hopefully he ends on a high note, and hopefully that's confetti falling over his head and we're winning the Super Bowl. But we'll have to wait and see about that. Also, did want to get your take on, apparently rumors are that the Ravens.
Glenn, dude, huge bat in the cave.
Do I?
Huge. No, I'm April Fool's, dude.
Come on, man. Why you gotta do that, dude? I was just ready to show everybody too. No shame in my game.
I figured you ain't got any shame anyway, so
no shame.
Couldn't have been that bad. I had to do. I let April Fools go all day, and I was like, you know what, Glenn will be a good sport about it. Yeah,
it doesn't bother me. But it's good to know that you will cut me off if need be, if there is.
I tried to make it as natural as possible.
Thank
See how
you.
I purposely did it mid-sentence? Sorry, go ahead, proceed.
It's all good. But no, the expectation is that the Ravens will begin, if they already haven't begun, negotiations with Lamar for a contract extension. It's kind of crazy to think that he's currently the 8th highest paid quarterback already.
Yeah.
Lost that, already been leapfrogged by tons of guys. Are you okay with them visiting this as soon as possible? Any thoughts on
the sooner the better? I mean, the sooner the cheaper, right?
Right.
It just is what it is. And Lamar Jackson is John said it best, right? He's gonna be the highest paid player in football. There's no other way to slice this thing. And just give him the dang money. Like, just whatever. I don't care, because Lamar Jackson is the highest return on investment in NFL history.
Yep.
Like,
absolutely.
You just don't get I made a decision today, Glenn. I was washing the dishes, and we'll let Jason hear in a second. I was washing the dishes, and I decided that Lamar Jackson is one of those rare people that is actually playing a different sport. He's on the field, and he's not playing football, right? Like, he's like Wilt or Shaq, or like Shaq didn't really play basketball.
Just bully people.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't really do that. And Wilt just ran track.
Yeah.
With a ball in his hand, and then did the hurdle when he got close to the hoop like that. Like, Lamar is just so far and above everybody athletically, and he's just so gifted. Dude, I don't think he's playing football.
Yeah, he's on a different level, and expect him to be the highest paid player and be happy. I'm sure Steve Bisciotti would be happy to write that check. But look, we're going to get back into some of the other presser stuff here, I guess in a little while, but I don't want to keep our next guest waiting any longer. So without further ado, the return to the show of the great, the powerful, the all-knowing Jason Pruett from DRAFTPLEX. Welcome back, Jason. How you doing today?
We're good, boys. We're drafting this month.
Let's go. That's what he said, man. I like it. And dude, I like the beard.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Let's go.
Hold on now. Why don't I get that kind of love, dude? What's going on, Jimbo?
Well, Glenn, his beard is a little more groomed.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fair.
But once you get the fullness and you groom it up a little bit,
Yeah. Well, the fullness, grooming I can take care of. All right, fullness, I might have to talk to LeBron, see whatever he's doing on top of his head to keep hope alive.
Yeah, you guys don't see the back. I need that same advice. Sunroof is open, which is why we're kind of trim here. So
all I see is the mohawk. Okay, that's all.
Yeah,
you know what they call a sunroof in Spanish? A quemacoco. It means a coconut burner.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Nice.
burn the old coconut, dude.
Yeah, this is the first time I've gotten it like this short. The last couple times I've gotten it cut, and so like you can tell the color difference between that and this around here. So
okay.
I'm doing my part to get outside to try to even it out. But
There you go.
Yeah,
Nothing
don't get
worse
too
than
much
a
though.
little
Get the
haircut tan
sunscreen.
line.
No, absolutely.
That's awesome. Jason, we're excited to have you on, man. This is the first time we've gotten to catch up with you. I know Glenn's gotten to catch up with you a couple of times, so super grateful for you hopping on. But
no, of course.
We're excited to talk about all things draft tonight.
Yeah, things are happening, man. There's boards being built and rankings and stacks. as you guys saw today, like my stuff is fresh as of yesterday. Actually, past midnight on Sunday, so everything is, in there. I've got maybe like 3 other names that I feel like I've got to look at later, but I'm only going to do one more revision and lock it in before this is done because, at this point, I feel like a lot of the hay is in the barn. The pro days, you'll get some things from. A couple of guys we were kind of waiting on, with Abdul Carter and Will Johnson there in the first round. Like those are 2 of the bigger names where like some pro day circumstances were being looked forward to. And, we're still not sure what we'll get from both of those guys, but, it's moving along pretty quickly here. And, 3 weeks time, we'll be picking players. So that'll be the fun part.
I like that. Really quickly, before we dig into it, we were talking about Mike Tomlin before you came on. I think you might have heard that. Glenn, I'm convinced that he must have taken a Peloton class before that.
Doesn't it look like
he just didn't cool off in time? He didn't I find myself, unfortunately, like trying to avoid that look in work. If like in between calls, I like try and get something quick in, and I'm like, yeah, I just like don't cool down in time. And so I'm thinking it was something like that.
Because the shirt didn't have sweat marks, but his head completely soaked.
Yeah, so I think he was just overheating a little bit.
Moisture wicking,
Yeah, there you go.
But man, if your choices are Mason Rudolph and then maybe signing Aaron Rodgers,
I'd be sweating too, right?
Picking in this quarterback class as we talked about, man's going through it.
Yeah.
And then this is the second comment I want to make really quickly because Glenn, I don't believe, is yet to admit this. Well, at least not on air. But I think he's coming around to the fact that I am right about Shedeur Sanders.
Oh yeah, let's start there.
Well, tell me about it.
Well, I said it from the beginning. Glenn knows it. I don't think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. I think he's going to be a fringe starter. And last night, I think it was you, Glenn. It was you, right? That sent the video about the comp to Andy Dalton, and I think that's a compliment. Yeah. Andy Dalton could sling that thing, dude. He had some years.
Yeah, he did.
But
what that's saying is also Andy Dalton was never in conversation of one of the best quarterbacks. He had 1 year where he was one of the top performers, but what you're saying is that Shedeur Sanders will never be in discussion as one of the top quarterbacks, and at best he'll maybe crack the top 10 at the best season of his career, because that's what Andy Dalton is.
I think he'd be lucky to mirror Andy Dalton's career, if you're asking me.
Wow.
Honestly, I think he would be lucky. I mean, just play the numbers. I think a lot of guys would be lucky to mirror Andy Dalton's career. But yeah, I don't think he's got more arm talent than Andy Dalton did.
Before we get Jason's take, I will say this: the expectation, or at least the most recent rumor, is that the Giants are going to take Shedeur. If that's the case, they're going to have a quarterback room with Jameis Winston, with Russell Wilson, and now Shedeur Sanders. So I think it was Dion was asked about that, and he said, well, people are going to get baptized. Oh, here we go. Here we go. You know what? I blame, and by the way, I didn't buy the doggle. Okay.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Going into witness protection over there, Glenn.
There we go.
There it is.
Okay. So Dion said players are going to be getting baptized before the game because all 3 of those guys, I mean, God first, all 3 of those guys. There's going to be live baptism on the sidelines if all 3, but that's going to be quite a quarterback room with those 3 guys. But Jason, what is your overall impression of Shedeur and his future in the NFL?
Yeah, one comment on the Giants QB room, if that were to happen. I texted my friend because we kind of have a running Jameis thing where he's the greatest thing ever, right? The 3 of them is that has to be Hard Knocks, right?
Oh, it's got to
happen.
Done.
And sitcom style, I don't care about anybody else there. Let's just follow them around.
Yes.
I kind of still have to go through the process of, the mock draft is where I kind of start forming some opinions about where I think guys are going to go. And then that evolves over time up until that last mock draft when we actually get to it. As far as Shedeur goes, James, you weren't on the first couple of calls. That was kind of one of the first things I talked about this quarterback class.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And
where I listened to the whole thing, I was waiting for Glenn to give me some credit here.
Yeah, when we'll if we talk about like where my stack is, we've talked about it before. Like I'm not grading these guys on what I think. It's like where they're going to go, right? So as I started out with all these quarterbacks, topped out second round guys, and so many the analysts out there and probably the teams I feel like have talked their way into Cam Ward as being pick number one. Nobody has him as the best player in this draft. There's so much I think that is it's not glossed over. I think, some of the flaws are getting pointed to and that sort of thing, but, he's the best of the bunch. Quarterback needy league. It's the same story every year. A lot of these guys get pushed up. Don't get me started on Tyler Shuck. But with Shedeur, like to your point, I feel like there's a lot of that too. And I think as we kind of entered this process, so it's between they're 1 and 2, right? They're 1 and 2. There's no gap. I think now there is a sizable gap between the two. I don't have a read on whether Shedeur is a top 5 pick, and we're not going to say that as a prospect, or if he slides. And somebody made a good point. It's like, how much of a slide is it really, right? Like as we've kind of gone through this process. You watch the tape like it's there, right? And all you hear with him is like, he's tough. He's got, a fast processor. He's, the best at kind of reading the defense of anybody in this class. I didn't see that, but I have to lean on the fact that, okay, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks go. I don't think any of these guys, Cam Ward included, are above anybody that went in the first round last year. And their draft position doesn't indicate, I think, the level of prospect they are. It's just kind of the circumstantial part of, every year we do this, right? I have a lot of challenges that for team, like the only team that I feel like is really like in a position where they like kind of have to draft Shedeur is probably Pittsburgh. Because Mason Rudolph is not a starting quarterback that you expect to do anything with. I'd be hard pressed to say that he's a Band-Aid of any sort. They have familiarity with him. I think he was at Tennessee last year. And who else do they have?
Well, Aaron Rodgers, the expectation is he'll be going soon.
Right. And what does that look like?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's
another hard knocks right there.
Yeah, that could be even worse for that team. But they're the team that I see, like, they don't have a starter. Cleveland is in that position, but like there were some comments this week from, Haslam, the owner, that was like, he kind of, I won't say he took accountability, but at least in language that, man, we messed up when we did this with Deshaun Watson, right? And if you were to I've been listening to a lot of Todd McShay's podcasts and stuff over the last few weeks as I've kind of caught up on some things, and like he made a good point. It's like, okay, if you draft Shedeur, like what are you going to do with him? You're in a hole, which is why it was kind of funny that there was some random guy was like, they're trading for Dak Prescott. It's like, how much sense does that make? But it set the world on fire because it's clickbait stuff.
But you were a little nervous about losing Dak, weren't you, Jason?
No, because he's the highest paid player in the league. He's got a no trade clause.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Cleveland's already paying Deshaun whatever it is they're paying. Yeah, they're going to spend $180 million on 2 quarterbacks or whatever it is. It's like they can't afford to do that. So it was
apparently Kirk Cousins is the rumor now.
Right. That was kind of what I was getting to. It's like there are still options out there for them to do something, but Cleveland is also in this position where, if you're at the top of the draft, are you going to force that quarterback pick, or are you going to pick an Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, and then come back around? You're at the top of the second round. What is the gap between a Shedeur Sanders and a Jackson Dart, or if you like him, Tyler Shuck? Jalen Milroe is out there, which I'm thinking that New York, that might be the place for him.
Wow.
Because he doesn't have to start. Russell's coming in with the expectation to start. Jameis is over there just happy to be anywhere. And so I started thinking about that. I was like, what's the best situation for him? It's not going to be Cleveland. And you bring up Kirk Cousins, like that's the type of quarterback. That's the type of quarterback that Shedeur is. But do you really think that they're going to come in and they're going to draft a quarterback and turn it around like Washington did last year? Probably not. But anything can happen. If they take him at number 2, it's not because he's the second. It's Cam Warren above all else. Like neither one of those guys. Like I still now have a 1-2 on Shador because I'm not sure if he's going in the first round.
Wow.
He could go all the way at the top 5. He could slip out of the first round. We saw with like Will Levis, who towards the end of that process, he's going number 4, and he went in the second round to Tennessee. So you never really know until these picks start being made. But yeah, I'm on the fence with him as he could turn out to be awesome. Maybe it all comes together for him. I didn't see that from what I've watched, from what I've gleaned. I haven't gotten that either. Everybody doesn't have to be the Lamar Jackson, the Patrick Mahomes, and the Joe Burrows of the world, but I'd looked at him as a at best a second round prospect in this draft.
Wow. Look at that, Jimbo. I mean, I don't know how he keeps doing it, but I will say this before we move on to the Ravens, because he also had similar comments, I think, about Ashton Genty. Is that correct, Jimbo? You were doubting Ashton Genty at the next level?
Who? What? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
If you did, how dare you?
I quit. No, maybe it was my buddy Rich who was doubting Ashton Genty, and then I asked Jason about him, and he said he's the greatest prospect he's ever seen, which pisses me off that you said who, Jimbo.
Oh, wait. You guys talked about him.
Running back from Boise. Yeah.
Yes. No, this was
Heisman
not
hopeful.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
He's a fire hydrant, dude.
Yeah. Absolute freak show.
Yeah.
Do you stand by that that review last time, Jason, that Ashton Genty is just, you think he's going to be one of the very best back? Oh, he's number 1. Okay.
Number 1 on my board.
Number 1. Best player in the whole
I stand by it.
Draft, Jimbo, is a running back. What do you think about that?
I like it. I think it's the resurrection of the running back room.
I think it's fun. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a class for it.
It's funny, sure. if you would have said the running back from Boise instead of his name, I would have.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh, it's terrible of me. But no, I like the kid. I think I was just watching him work out and obviously, you see the tape and stuff like that from last year, the stuff he did. I'm excited to see where he ends up. How early do you see where he goes?
I got to sort through that, as I move through this mock draft process. Obviously, the popular pick is the Raiders at 6. I kind of kicked around. We talked about it, like just speculation. Like, what if he went earlier than that? Cleveland likes running backs. It probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense again for how their team is constructed. What about the Giants? Do they have that buyer's remorse of, Saquon letting him go to the Eagles, then doing what he did? He never did that there.
That'd be interesting.
Daniel Jeremiah kicked around the Patriots too. Like Mike Vrabel coming in. You're very familiar with the guy he used to have with Derrick Henry. They ran their offense that way. But they have, I think, a little bit better quarterback now. So maybe, they make some adjustments. I think Josh McDaniels is still, doing his thing there. So, but probably not Jacksonville unless somebody tries to trade up. Again, you got to kind of work through all these scenarios with like who might trade back for who, because the way that every mock draft I've been seeing lately has been just very chalk at the top. A little bit of fluctuation between that handful of guys. You throw Mason Graham in there, and then once you get to about 6, that's where most Genty goes, and then after that it's Chicago at 10. And
so no chance he's out of the top 20.
Oh, absolutely not.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I love that. All right. Well, that's exciting to know the running back position. I mean, free agency did a lot to boost their reputation.
In the season.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So that free agency with all those running back changing teams and making massive impacts, I think certainly helped. But Ashton Genty, man, I can't wait to see this guy. I'm curious where he goes in fantasy football drafts as a stone cold rookie, because the way you're talking, Jason, if he goes to the right team, I mean, he might be a late first round pick type player, because it's hard to find quality running backs unless you're talking about last year. But all right, so I got to get your take on one position we have not talked about yet before we start going through scenarios, and that's kicker.
Kickers.
The Ravens are in a very weird position right now with Justin Tucker, the allegations from the different massage therapists going around, and the expectation is that they will add a kicker at some point, either in the draft or more likely an undrafted guy that like they found Justin Tucker. So what is this year's kicker class looking like? Is there anyone that you look at as a potential that could earn a draft pick, or are these guys undrafted expected?
I mean, I don't usually watch the kickers, but I at least try to get a temperature taken on it. You look at who gets invited to the combine. That's usually a good indicator of who's kind of in the mix.
Okay.
I think Andres Borregales from Miami is the one that everybody's been talking about, who probably has the best chance to be drafted. I think he has a pretty decent leg. I think he kicked like a 65 maybe it was the pro day or something like that. But that's the name that I've seen, the most as far as like a draftable kicker in this draft.
Gotcha. So only one name, not names, just one name.
Yeah, the only other one that was invited to the combine was Ben Sauls there. I guess that's how you pronounce his name. Again, I kind of just go off the list, who got invited to the combine, Senior Bowl, the Shrine, and the Hula Bowl. That's what I do with the specialists, and then they get just tacked on to their own category. I don't grade them or put them into a round. They're just on there. If they get picked, go for it.
Gotcha. Okay.
How do you, other than looking at your sources and kind of deducing the ability of these players, how do you evaluate kickers?
I don't.
Fair. Essentially what you're doing is you're saying, okay, this is what's being said. These are my trusted sources. And
yeah, I trust the evaluation of the people that run those scouting services, like obviously they're getting influence and it's not always just who gets the combine, it's who gets drafted. Again, we get every year, there's, a good percentage of, non-combine invites that are drafted, and some of them, pretty high. I think on my board, I have a handful of non-combine invites in like the 4-6 range and a bunch more in like the 5 to 7. Then most of them are going to be undrafted, right? But as far as kickers go, like when I start with my master list of everybody I got to look at and look into, the kickers are over here, and they kind of just get moved from the master list to the board. And then, they get X'd for combine, get the numbers and that sort of thing. But like I said, if I come across it and I see like, okay, that's the name, like what was it last year? Torrey Taylor, the punter from Iowa. He had a lot of name buzz, and then he got drafted by the Bears, because it was the funny thing about Caleb Williams saying we're not going to be doing a lot. And he ended up like having the most punts in the league or something that. So you come across those things, but
sounds like Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I did see Borregales, so I think he's probably the one. If there's one drafted, I couldn't tell you about punters. Long snappers usually don't get drafted, and from what I looked at, I think everybody is pretty set there. So it's, those would be like camp invites and stuff.
Gotcha. Now, I know we're going to get to the Ravens. I have a few questions to kind of shape this conversation. One of them is more of a proclamation followed by a question. If any of you know anything about me at this point, 90% of my life's decisions and statements of everything that comes out of my mouth is based on gut feeling, right? Just kind of shoot from the hip and let it fall where it may.
Here we go.
So I think, even though that there are a lot of reasons to think otherwise, I think that the Ravens will be the most aggressive in the first round they have ever been. I think they will make the biggest jump in team history to pair that up with a guy that is falling, who I don't know yet. I'm working on that. So I'm kind of hoping to get some of your help here, Jason. But the reason I believe that is because I wholeheartedly believe that at the end of the last season, Eric DeCosta felt like this has to, like, there's got to be two eyes on the present. Like, I always know he's about the future, but man, last year was so gut-wrenching to know we left on the table, watching the Super Bowl, watching the Kansas City Chiefs get blown out, knowing that would have been a more competitive game with us there. It just, to me, felt different. So, all that being said, Jason, I have a few questions for you. One, how much time do you take evaluating potential trades? Like, is that something that you do very often? Do you spend much time doing? And then based on what you know about the Ravens, what's your take on my take?
Yeah, I get into that when I start doing a mock. Usually it's the last one if I squeeze it, because like the 1.0 that I do is usually just by the board, right?
Yeah.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way down to 32. Then if I have the time to do it, I'll do a 7-round, which is it's more of an exercise for me to like understand like, okay, who do I need to kind of move up and down as I look at how teams are drafted. And thus far that's worked out pretty well for determining like top 100 and that sort of thing. And then once I get to the final one, that's where I really look at trade scenarios. Because one, you got to look at who wants to move down and why, who's going to get, they're going to get sniped, whoever they wanted before them, somebody else might want to come up, what the cost is to move up and down. And, this draft is going to be interesting because as we talked about, there's only a handful of kind of like those blue chip prospects. And the meat of this is going to be like that, second half of the first round through like probably the middle of the third, where it's like, what do you want and who do you like? It's not, in any sort of order. And like, that's the fun part of like, for us trying to piece this together of like, okay, who can go in kind of this range and this range. And, we do our part, I say everybody else has their own process. I look at it this, like, I want to get the rounds right, outside of mock drafting, right? I want to get, where do I think the guys are going to be drafted? So the idea that the Ravens would want to move up would depend on who is moving down and why. If it's like an injury, if it's just, everybody thought one way about it and the league thinks about it differently. We see that a lot of times, like I said, with these quarterbacks, sometimes it's the pass rushers, what other kind of, like there's a few guys here that you don't really know if, it takes one team, right? Your Shamar Stewarts of the world who look amazing but had no production. And then you've got, so I know somebody, in the comments, there's James Pierce Jr., who like everybody looks at like as a prospect, tape only, would be up there, but there's a lot of baggage underneath that teams are going to have to sort through. And where does he actually go? Because we've seen it kind of, he's got a huge range at this point. You think he still goes early, but as far as somebody dropping, who knows and why? But I don't think, and again, I'll have to go through the mock draft part so I have to get a better understanding of like who's in a position to move down. Like I can do a little bit off of that with the team needs and kind of pinpoint, okay, this team, like Pittsburgh, for example, I'm not sure if they're going to pick in the first round. They don't pick again until 83, and I think they've only got like a handful of picks anyway. So it would make sense if they need, if they need to fill holes, try to get, recoup something and get somebody else to come up. But what do you have to offer them, right? And who are they going to come up for? It's all, how the board falls. And, other teams that have a lot of picks.
Would they really do business with the Ravens?
Exactly. And we've seen that, like, it doesn't always like come down to like divisions. I mean, the year the Cowboys got Micah Parsons, they traded, I think, with the Giants or the Eagles. Like this stuff does happen. Like it's still business. You come up for whoever you want, as long as the, the compensation is right. But to the second half of that, as I was saying, is that you look at teams that have a lot of ammo that can kind of do some things. And the Ravens are one of those teams that have, I think 11 picks in this draft. They're not going to have 11 spots on their roster for rookies. So you take some of those later round picks, start packaging those together, come up for somebody that you might like. Who that would be, I don't know. It depends on what they want to target. So
yeah, kind of wait and see. But yeah, I think if there's any team that has the draft capital to make that kind of move, it would be the Ravens. But man, that's I hope you're right, Jimbo, and you tend to be right on a lot of these things. So I'll be rooting for you. But
can I ask one more follow up, Glenn?
Please do. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have you've been doing a lot of positional ranking stuff. I know you're prepping mocks and otherwise, but is there a guy that you see, or maybe one or two names that you see on potential like drop alert? Is that the word? Like they fall alert, right? Like that potential guys that could potentially fall here. I know you named a couple. But you have some solidified guys in your mind that you could see based on what we've seen in drafts past. Like there's some similarities here between these guys and other guys that have fallen.
Yeah. So I look at it based on, again, what I've seen so far. Like I haven't gone through it personally, but you look at like from an injury standpoint, Jihad Campbell just had a shoulder surgery right after the combine. At least my understanding is that he should be ready by the summer. He had gotten up into that top 10 mix. Does the team still take him in the top 10? Possibly. But if he starts falling, like if you have the ability to kind of wait on that, make sure he's good, I think there's a lot of upside to unlock with a pick like that in the, the back half of the first round, or even, kind of starting around 20, if he hasn't gone yet, start looking at that. Because if you need a linebacker, the meat of this draft is going to be in rounds, I think, 3, 4, 5. So if you want one of the more elite prospects at that position, you're going to have to get him or Jalen Walker or Schwessinger from UCLA a little bit earlier. After that, it's just a huge kind of muddy stack of, guys that are going to be very similarly rated to get him. On the flip side of that, you look at the wide receiver position, like that's another thing. It's like we've talked about Travis Hunter, he's going in the top 3, I think. If he gets to 4 at New England, that's just because one of Cleveland or New York went after Shedeur Sanders. And you look at Teteroa McMillan. We talked about it, I think, on the last call, and Glenn was like, what chance does he have to fall? I don't see it, but the league could see it that way. The one that's fallen out of kind of this stack right here is Luther Burden. A lot of people don't have him in the first round anymore, and had consistently been like a top half of the first round guy. So if he were to be there, like he probably wouldn't be somebody you trade up for, but it just speaks to the idea that how these guys are ranked and ordered is going to fluctuate from team to team. And even on draft night, like all it takes is one team to pick Luther Burden in the top half of the first round, and people are going to be like, oh, we weren't seeing him there anymore, so why did they overlook Teteroa McMillan or Matthew Golden or, Ibuka? And I think the only other one that's kind of in that range is Travis Hunter, and you're not going to really have a chance at him, even if, DJ was talking about somebody trade up for him like Dallas. Okay, that's, splashy, but what does that do for your team? Other than that,
Hey, Jason, quickly, could Tet fall? Yeah. I saw a recent interview where he talked about he doesn't like watching football. He doesn't watch it on his own, and he doesn't feel the need to since they watch it as a team. I'm sure NFL GMs weren't thrilled to hear that he doesn't seem like he loves watching football at all.
Yeah, we'll wait for the beast to see what the facts are around that. But what I read was that was when he was a freshman, and he probably didn't have the thought in mind of like, oh, I probably shouldn't say this, as most of those young kids do, because it might affect my future job prospects. So, but at the same time, like there's been players like that. If the quarterback said that,
that'd be a problem.
That'd be a problem for a receiver to have said that. If it wasn't recent, it's a good nugget to kind of, at least have been brought to attention. But I don't know that I would be overly concerned about that. But if there's more to it, it's very possible, because we've talked about football character type guys, and these guys that maybe don't spend the time, Monday through Saturday doing other things, that, teams will move on to a different player, even if the talent level might not be equivalent. So, but yeah, going kind of back to kind of wrap that point up, it's hard for me to see anybody that would fall at this point. I think a lot of the questions have been answered, like Will Campbell, like how far was he going to go because of the arm length? And then, I think people have kind of come around to the idea that combine measurements were off. And so, he's probably going to be good. And if he's not good at tackle, whoever takes him will move him into guard. He'll be just fine. And then after that, getting a sense of who's slotting where, I don't think is really crystal clear for anybody at this point. So it would really take, I think, so like right now I've upped my first round. I won't say locks, but the most likely just straight up first round. I'd be surprised if one of these guys or two of these guys didn't go in the first round. I have 17. So if one of those guys was there at 20, 21, 22, you want to make a jump up a few picks for whoever that might be, then I'd say go for it. Because, it's that group that you want to get in. And, we have this every year, but it's lesser this year, I think, of the 20, 24 sometimes of, after that, it's, these guys could easily go in the second round. And the ones that I've kind of earmarked on my round one guys, that's who you want if you're in the first round, I think.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, Jimbo, you want to start going through a mock draft right here?
Let's do it. Yeah, I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, so we'll do 2 rounds, and we'll just kind of talk through.
You want to do 2 rounds or
scenarios.
2 mocks? 2 rounds?
Well, we can do 2 rounds relatively quick. I think,
that's true.
But,
that's fair.
Yeah, we'll take a look. I don't like going all public when it comes to the board. I want to show, but I also am not a big fan of randomness because then it just does crazy stuff.
And how can a computer be random?
That's a good point too. Yeah,
algorithms.
Sure, but then there's a computation to equal random, right?
Some of these I haven't done too much of the simulator stuff this year, but a little bit that I have played with, it all just seems very you get what you get. It's the same thing, kind of rinse and repeat. So I don't know how random it actually gets.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough, but we'll take a look and see what happens. I have it set up.
It's perfect. I'm glad you got rid of randomness.
Yeah, I don't like the randomness thing. So, all right, let's see what happens as we go through the draft here. Mason Graham. So I saw Mason Graham pissed off when they were bringing up his arm length. He's like, look, I'm tired of it. It's not a problem until somebody gets a ruler out and measures my arm. It's not a problem until then. But, all right, so as you can see, your first mock here, Jalen Walker goes just before. James Pierce, a guy that we talked about. Luther Burden, another guy that we talked about potentially dropping. Shamar Stewart. Matthew Golden goes at 17 to the Bengals. Oh, hell no. I wouldn't want that as a Ravens fan. You got to deal with Higgins. You got to deal with Chase and Matthew Golden. Screw that. Man, Malachi Starks goes 14. That's a guy I think a lot of Ravens fans were hoping. I saw Mike Green mentioned in the chat earlier as a potential edge addition.
Yeah. First round guy, just to make sure.
Yes, Jihad Campbell is also a guy that you just mentioned. But as it stands right now, Jimbo, how should we sort by position?
Well, I think let's scroll really quickly. Let's just scroll down so we get a general idea of who's left.
Okay.
Right? And point out if there's any people that you don't think would be here, either of you guys, in all reality, right? I just wonder if there's any guys that are maybe in your think that's ranked.
With that combine performance, is Eman is he a guarantee? Do you think there's a chance he could slip this late or potentially into the second round, or did he skyrocket his draft stock with the combine?
I think he's first round possibility. I have him in my round one guys. I think people have come back down to earth a little bit because he was going real early there for a spell. A lot of times 13 at Miami and for safety, I think that's kind of high.
Yeah.
As I kind of went through there, they have some other needs that I think are a little bit more pressing, and I don't think safety is a position where, again, the testing was out of the world, but that's a stretch to kind of go that high based on kind of the needs of their team.
Gotcha. Okay. So you think it's very real that he could be here. Okay.
I think it's
just
real.
Want to say, sorry, go ahead, Jason.
I saw Shador is still there.
I was going to say, Shador's sitting there.
Yes,
Shador Sanders is sitting there, which I think is hilarious.
So let me just pose this question. If this were to happen and you guys are sitting at 27, would you be taking calls?
Oh, for sure.
For Shador?
Move back,
because,
you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, I don't know where Cam Ward went. I'm assuming he's off the board, but I know he didn't go to Tennessee or Cleveland or New York.
Right there.
So he went to the Jets.
Yeah.
So any one of those teams at the top of the second round, we're taking calls from them to see if anybody wants to come up.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there was a couple guys that I would say the Ravens would have a hard time passing on. I think Malachi Starks is one of them because I do think they're very interested in adding a third safety to this team. I think it would be big time if they were able to get one of Malachi's, as far as a guy who could contribute week one as a big time contributor. I think
the only thing I'll say is the Ravens hate the second round. He just
I
hate
know.
the second
Our
round.
second round picks are not always
They
good.
suck, and so
They're-
Eric's just decided to get rid of them lately.
Just trade them away. But I will say that the Steelers don't have a second round pick. So if this does go how they're saying, and they take Josh Simmons, be interesting to see what. I guess they're just all in, or they're going. You know what?
Steelers
Next
a
year,
big birdie, a big old birdie, and say, "Nope, sorry,
See,
buddy."
And let me just go off a little tangent here. This is the issue that I've kind of had with these simulators, as well as some of the team needs that I've seen, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of them that just kind of base on like, oh, there's somebody that's moved on in free agency, or somebody that was injured, or this person's started. They're not looking at everything holistically.
Yeah,
Because if you just drafted somebody last year and he's not starting yet, but you can develop, like, that's not an immediate need. Like,
yeah.
For them to have drafted, Fautanu last year, they've got what's Broderick Jones.
Roger, the Giant.
And like I looked at that, and like they might need a guard. I think.
What's your thoughts on Simmons getting kicked inside?
I don't like that. I think he's a tackle.
Okay, all right.
But at the same time, it's like they don't need the tackle, and like they can
Right.
move Fautanu, but like. Okay,
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
You don't have a quarterback. You don't have a running back. Like, why would they? Again, regardless of our personal opinions, why wouldn't they take Shador there?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
other thing I'll say too is the pick after that. There's a better chance that there's a what's the saying? There's a popsicle's chance in hell or something like that. How does it go?
Snowballs.
Yeah, it's snowball's chance in hell. That the Chargers with a Greg Roman led offense are taking a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
even if it's bare bones, who cares? They don't care.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty surprising to see, but they are devoid of talent at the wide receiver
They are.
position.
I just don't see it happening. But Glenn, where I would go, unless you're against this, is I would go right to guard.
Okay,
And see who's around.
Yep, let's see.
Tyler
Is the
Booker.
best? Yeah, there he is.
I know that's your guy. But do
That's
you
my
think
guy.
he fits with what we do here in Baltimore? I know you talked about he's not a guy that's going to pull a lot, right?
Yeah, but if you look at who, again scheme wise, this is the type of player that has kind of played guard for the Ravens. Kind of bigger. I won't call him lumbering. The testing says that. I think he moves well enough. But unless you wanted to go with like a Banks, a Marcus Bowell or somebody like that, there's still flavors of guards. Like Tyler Booker's my guy, so I'm a little biased. But
Is he a first round grade?
he's a first round grade for me.
Okay.
I'm happy to die on that hill and be wrong. And if he goes in the second round, that's no sweat off my back. I like the player.
Yeah, and I think Jimmy's right in the sense that, like, sure, a couple years ago, this is an obvious player that they would be looking for, but I do think they're looking. Ideally, they would get a guy who has the foot speed because they love to pull their guards and get those guys out in space. But we, at the same time, have to recognize that they did start a 6'8" Faalele last year, who's 400 pounds at guard. So obviously, they're flexible when it comes to that. And I think we all believe that Tyler Booker has more mobility in open space than Faalele had.
Do you think that, though, Jason? Do you think he has more mobility open space? I know that Faalele is huge, but I also realize that he's a bit of a rare athlete in that for his size, like he's a decent mover, right? Like, not saying in general, but relative to the size human he is, he's in pretty rare air, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think he can move well enough. He's not going to be Jason Kelsey, like pulling out there from the center position and that sort of thing as far as that mobility. Yeah. But, relative to everybody else in this, I'd be perfectly fine with that in that context. He's not a phone booth only type of guard, because there's plenty of those type of guys in here. So yeah, it would be that's kind of like where I would lean from a guard standpoint. Like I said, depending on whether you have Kelvin Banks as a tackle or a guard, I think you do both. Yeah, and then Donovan Jackson would be the other one from Ohio State.
Donovan Jackson. Let me see if he's gone or not.
But I agree. I mean, I think if the kid is here, let's take him. Let's not play games.
But just for
I mean, for the sake of this, let's look around for sure.
Because I do think the Ravens need a cornerback. I think an outside corner. Now, actually, you know what? This is the perfect person to have on here, Jason, as a Cowboys fan. The Ravens just picked up Chidobe Awuzie as really a steal, a veteran minimum, as he's still being paid handsomely from the Tennessee Titans after getting, I think, the biggest cornerback contract of the offseason last year. But I know he spent in probably his best years were in Dallas. What's your thoughts on the Ravens picking up Awuzie?
It wouldn't stop me from doing anything, to be honest. I think he's a veteran. I won't say it's the level of kick the tires, but like he's a serviceable starter. That's what he was in Dallas. Like he was somebody that always seemed to be, right there. Never would get
Brandon
the ball.
Stevens.
Oh boy.
Yeah, he played well enough, like, to start for the few years that he did.
Okay.
I don't know what he's done since, but he was not somebody that was a priority to keep around. I think they were okay to move on to somebody else.
Dang. Okay. All right. So, I mean, they got him for the vet minimum, so I guess that's what we should expect. But if he is healthy, it sounds like he would be a depth piece, but not a piece that's going to go, okay, we no longer have to look at corners.
Mm-mm.
So having said that,
filling a hole.
Gotcha. Okay. So when I sort by interior offensive line, cornerback, safety, and interior defensive line, as you can see, according to PFF, their biggest value is if the Ravens address the interior defensive line position, which, if you haven't seen, Calais Campbell's expected to sign with the Arizona Cardinals, making his return here incredibly unlikely. So they are in the market.
Play for the Cardinals?
Yeah, that was here he started.
Yeah.
I believe, or no, maybe he started in Jacksonville and then went there right after.
No,
he was originally in Arizona.
It was Arizona.
Yeah, because he got the big payday from Jacksonville.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So having said that, do any of these guys, in your opinion, Harmon, Alexander, all these guys are interior defensive linemen. They're saying they're the best four available. If you were drafting,
we need a guy at that position.
Yeah. Would you take any of these guys over Booker?
Like me personally, I could do that because I think guard is always traditionally a mid to late second through the fourth. You can get a starter quality. Like I said, I love Tyler Booker, but I can get a guard, right? Okay. I think they're a little high on TJ Sanders and a little high on Tyleik Williams. Derek Harmon's my number 2 defensive lineman behind Mason Graham. Wow. And then I actually like Darius Alexander more than other people. He's my number 3 ahead of Kenneth Grant, ahead of Walter Nolan.
So Derek Harmon, if they get him at 27, do you look at that as a relative steal or a great value?
That's a good night.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Okay. And would you also, what's up?
No, I was going to ask what you would do here. Sounds like we know what Jason would do.
I'm also intrigued by some of these safeties. What's your thoughts on a guy? Okay, let's get to this super chat here. SMKG says, "Hey Jason, could Mike Green be at 27?"
Yeah, very possible. I mean, I think he's certainly been in the mix as far as top half. You look at like Atlanta. There at 15 is the one I've seen him most mocked to. But again, it's about the order of how these guys go. Abdul Carter is going 1 or 2, 3, somewhere there. And then after that, you got Mike Green, got Mykel Williams, Shamar Stewart. Donovan Ezeraku is kind of gotten a little bit momentum from Boston College, and we don't know where Pierce is going to go.
Right.
I think those 6 guys, the last 5 that I just discussed can probably go in any order. I mean, we've seen it in the past of different players that maybe are further down, but Will McDonald goes to the Jets at 16 or wherever he was, and he was like a second round guy for me. So yeah, very, very real. It doesn't necessarily have to be the off field, and to the point of that, I think at least that's been covered to a degree. So I don't know if there's any lingering concerns about that. You never know, but yeah, I think it's very possible that he could be there.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I got to ask about because it's interesting at safety, because I love the idea of the Ravens getting a safety. I know that guard's important, and I'm okay with that. But I notice you have Nick Emmanwori as your number one safety. You have a first round grade on him, and you have Malachi Starks behind him. Malachi's already off the board in this mock, but Emmanwori is not, as far as I remember.
He's like 46, I think, on their board.
So, man, it's like I'm so intrigued by him. And then what about Watts? I mean, Watts I see is your third safety.
Mm-hmm.
Is Watts a reach here, in your opinion?
It kind of speaks to the idea. It's like he's not going to be there when you come back around the second round.
Okay.
So if you like the player, you go for the player, right? So from a tape perspective, again, as I judge these guys as like where they're going to be drafted, from what I watched, I liked Watts better. I think I started out when I watched the tape, Emmanwori was number 4 of Starks, Watts, and Kevin Winston Jr. I could be wrong, but I know he wasn't number 1. Winston Jr. was for me, but he was hurt this year. So, if you took Watts there, I think the comparison has been made because of the size and kind of like the type of position that Emmanwori plays, very similar to Kyle Hamilton. I think Watts gives you something different. It says it right there. He's kind of the ball hawk of this class. Like the ball finds him. So that might be a little bit more for, playing that high safety. If you were looking for that, I think that he's as good as anybody in that group as far as being a playmaker on that back end.
Man, I would love to add a true center fielder to this defense and allow Kyle Hamilton to go back down towards the line of scrimmage. That would be
Glenn, let me tell you what has me nervous about this is I feel like it's not that it's brought bad results, but I get frustrated sometimes by how much money we've put in the back end of this defense, and still feel like at moments we've come up short. I mean, we had the worst passing defense in the NFL for half of the year last year. Of course, a lot of that had to do with Marcus Williams. And so like, you're not going to stop investing in the back end, but I feel like at this point, it makes me nervous about continuing to go to that well, right?
Yeah.
And concerning me that we might get the same results. Like, what if we just stay pat and go somewhere else? But you see what I'm saying, right? Like, it might be an unreasonable concern, but it's at least something that's on my mind as a Ravens fan, because we've spent so much time, money, resources, all the way from who's the dude that punched the guy in the face? Earl Thomas, right? And like, look at the moves we've made. And obviously some of them hit, like Nate Wiggins, I think is going to be hit. Obviously Kyle Hamilton is a hit. Look at our Darius Washington, undrafted kid, hit, right? So, and then, not to not mention Marlon Humphrey, but he was kind of here pre even, what's his face? Earl. Yeah. So I do get concerned about that.
Well, they also have Bo Braid. They got Sanusi Kane. They got some young guys.
Yeah. So right. So I guess my point is that I feel like there may be some higher priority picks here. I love the thought of it because then it frees up Kyle to do so many things. But you know what I mean? But at what point do we say, dang, the NFL is so shading towards a different type of football, right?
Yeah.
That like we're paying guys to lose last, not to actually win. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you what, Jimbo, I'm going to give you the first one, and then I'm going to do the second one. So who are you taking? Because D lineman to me is tough because I still feel like our starters are still going to be the starters, even if we get one of these guys. Like Metabike is not going anywhere, right? Like and Travis Jones has become one of a stud on the inside. And then we still have, Brady behind those two. So I don't feel like that's as pressing of a need, even though we did lose some guys in Michael Pierce and Brent Urban that we need to replace. So I'm going to let you go ahead and tell me who are the Ravens taking at this pick here, Jim?
Yeah, go back to guard.
Yeah, it's here.
Is this guard?
It's everything.
Oh, okay.
Can
you do
just
guard?
guard?
Yeah.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that I'm not wrong about something. Yeah.
Take that out. We're going to take safety out.
All right. Oh, you guys already know what position I'm going with. But yeah. Okay, good. So I was right about this. Man, the ranking is a struggle for me right here. And to Jason's point, I think that they would be taking calls, but I'm taking Tyler Booker, even if the ranking may be higher or lower, whatever. Stan Pat, take him, and you feel good about it.
Yeah, don't feel bad about that. He's got him as a first rounder. You're talking to the expert right here. It's his guy. No,
you're
complaints
right.
there.
And look, I think, Jason, it's fair to say you get a plug and play guy, a well-tested, battle-tested guy in college, where you're not going from a project in Falele or Voorhees, who is still unproven. I mean, he lost his job last year to Patrick McCary.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, and again, when you look at the back end of the first round, you're getting most cases a second round player, and that stack is not as kind of cut and dry as the first 10, 15 picks of this. So, again, as I mentioned, like Watts, if you liked Watts, you would take him there because you're not going to come back and get him. I'm curious if do you have more hesitation if Malachi Starks is still there?
Oh yes, 100%.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of, as I look at the way I laid out these needs, for Baltimore, my first round kind of like consideration is guard, because I think you're going to have a chance to get Tyler Booker. And then below that would be defensive lineman, which we showed there. I don't think you're going to have that pick of all of those guys, because the only one that was gone was Mason Graham. Linebacker, if Jahad Campbell is there, I think you've got to think about that. And corner, depending on how you feel about those corners and the position. If you think Cheeto's good to kind of cover that role, and you can kind of wait till the second, third round, maybe, if you want to look at a corner. But the ones that I had were, the value picks. And again, this is across the board of the way I laid this out, is like top 100. If you have the right tight end there, or the right pass rusher there, or the right safety there, then you would consider taking it above any of those other kind of need positions because the value is good.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, man, look at that. They get Travis Hunter in the first round, and then they turn around and grab Shador in the second. That would be a crazy draft for the Browns. I mean,
that's the draft day draft for them, man.
Dude.
Get exactly who you want.
Yep.
And you pair up Shador and Travis again. I mean, that would be insane. I would be pissed if they did that. I don't want that to happen, man. I don't want that. But as you can see
take
here,
Shador. Travis is a good pick, but Shador, sure, bring him on.
Hey, look, I'm sure this would surprise you, Jason. Cam Scatterbo goes 51 to Denver.
Hey, it could happen. It could happen. That's a little rich for me, but again, he might not be there when Denver comes back around. I don't know if they have they have a third round pick this year, so they might have could have waited and see. But if that's their guy, that's their guy.
That's right. Well, Jimbo, next one here. We still got needs across the board. I can't believe Shamar Turner's sitting here. But where do you want me to check first, Jimbo? What do you think?
No, Glenn, I want you to drive on this one, dude, because I'm excited to see what you do here. I have a tendency to go to D line as well here. I think there might be more value at interior D line here than at other positions, but that's just my inclination.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shamar Turner would be certainly an attractive prospect for the Ravens. It'd be tough for them to pass on. I think a guy who's as talented as he is, I think he would fit what the Ravens are looking for. But man, I got to tell you, there's a name down here. Like, what's your thoughts on Ben Morrison? Only because I feel like the Ravens are pretty needy at the cornerback position still to this point. I know, he was originally supposed to be a super high pick coming into this past season, and he's certainly dropped, and a lot of the concerns are his top end speed. But I'm still intrigued by Ben Morrison.
Yeah, the concern there is the injury. And I think we talked about this last time, with the hip. Hip is concerning. You hope everything checks out, but it's a little bit different of an injury than some of the other.
We know here in Baltimore. Don't worry, we dealt with that with Dennis Pitta.
Yeah, but to your point, he was kind of top half of the first round kind of lock before that. I think second round is where he's ultimately going to land this year. But again, you're taking a chance. If you're cleared by medical, this is going to be the range for him to go. So like as far as like the selection, as long as you're good with everything, I think you can go for it there.
Oh man, you know what though? The Ravens have had too many issues with hips. I think Jimmy's got a good point here. They've had multiple guys with hip injuries in their past, and Dennis Pitta was. I mean, it was sad to watch. The second one especially. I mean, where you just see him laying there.
I'm just glad he got his bag, dude.
If you let me get your take though, Jason, because I do have it sorted by the positions I think the Ravens would be most interested in at this point, especially when they take a guard in the first round. When you see these names, who is the most like the guy you look at as, man, he shouldn't be here. He should probably be gone by now. Any of these names
keep rolling a little bit. I haven't seen anybody specifically. Like Winston I like, but I think he'll be here. I don't think he's going to be gone by that because of the injury.
But I know oftentimes you and people.
Now,
go ahead.
Oladejo, they are ranked 111.
Yeah.
I think he's in this mix of the second round. Like at 111, that's a fourth round, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's favorite, Mel, talking about maybe late first round,
Wow. Okay.
So he is very much an upside pick because he just kind of started working the edge this year. So there's going to be room to grow. But man, he's been impressive throughout this kind of draft season process. So that's somebody that you might be getting a steal there late in the second round.
Okay, I like that. Oladejo. Okay, all right. Well, and then what's your take on Shamar? I think I'm going to go with Shamar here.
Yeah, he's kind of interesting because he's been a little bit under the radar from Shamar Stewart. Being, kind of the belle of the ball throughout the process. And then Nick Scorton on the flip side being kind of the guy that's like, oh, we had him high, but now we're kind of cooling off on him. And Shamar Turner, I hadn't seen much about him really at all. I think he's in this kind of mix. I have him as a 3-4 just because this class is so dense with the number of prospects on the defensive line that you're going to kind of get a better player later than you normally would because of how many there are. Of the guys that are there, me personally, I know he didn't test very well, but like his relative athletic score, the RAS, that Math Bomb does, it was very low, but they were ranking him as an edge. He's not an edge. Like he's a defensive lineman. Like he's not coming across the corner. He's probably like a 5 technique. But again, I talked about him before, like the length and like it's hard to ignore. Like I'm over here trying to watch Walter Nolan. It's like, who is that guy? Because I want to watch him instead. So he's somebody that I like in this kind of range. Ultimately, does he go a little bit further? Maybe. But I have a few of these guys ahead of Shamar Turner just because, I think he's kind of done in a little bit, like I think it said there, like he plays all the way across the line. I think there's been some, at least reported to, like temper issues and that sort of thing on the field. Maybe, maybe doesn't make the smartest decisions in terms of like in the heat of the moment kind of thing, 15-yard type of things. So that would be the one thing. But as far as like, where could he go? Yeah, probably there is be good. And, I wouldn't have a problem with it if you want to take him at the end of the second round.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I think, man, I'm so tempted to take Ben Morrison, dude.
I like Glenn splitting a decision. I love it.
Ben. Maybe I'm crazy to take a guy who's got those injury issues, but I just love the upside. If he is healthy, you're getting an What
just happened? Why?
No, you got a good grade.
I got a better grade than you guys.
It told you to draft Nick Scorton.
Yes, it did. It did over Tyler Booker.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Good luck. Not a fan.
I don't. It's not that I dislike Nick Scorton. I probably like him more than a lot of the people that I've kind of come across and things. Like I know he's more highly ranked, but I think people are cooling on him. Like there were people just like this guy, kind of thing. And I watched. I was like, he's not too bad. He's a good, solid second, third round type of player. Yeah, Tyler Booker, man. Let's put the pads on and go.
Let's
I love
go.
that. I love that. And I think if you're telling me your choices are, the fourth best at this, the fifth best at that, or the best guard in the whole damn thing, I think I'll take that. I'll take the best guy at the position rather than the fourth or fifth guy any day of the week. And I think the Ravens a lot of times end up feeling that way as well. They go out and, they get a center when nobody else was, everybody else kind of had him lower ranked. They go get a safety who, again, people thought wasn't worth that high of a pick. And maybe that's the case this year at 27. They go and get a guard. And man, I hope you guys are right. I hope he is that next guard of the future. Is he Quentin Nelson? Is he that good, or is that too far?
Nah, Quentin Nelson's kind of a standalone type of guard. That was very early on in the draft. I think that might have been the first DRAFTPLEX year that I did that. In my number 1 and number 2 was Saquon and Quentin Nelson. A running back and a guard. So you can see where, my lineage goes in terms of what kind of players that I like. If I like a running back, if I like a guard, I'm going to stand by them. And if I miss, I miss. But Genty and Booker, those are my guys.
Absolutely. Well, I think, you know what? I know I said we're going to do 2. We're just going to do 1 tonight.
Yeah. And
we got plenty of time to get more into this. We still have another few weeks here before the draft kicks off. But I wouldn't be mad at all if you're telling me you're getting a starter for the next 10 to 12 years at guard and Ben Morrison. I know it's taking a chance, but I think if he's healthy, he's one of the better corners out of this. He's long, 6-foot-tall corner. I would absolutely love to see it. But that's going to be it for us tonight, folks. We will be back towards the end of the week, more than likely not Thursday because I got a busy day. Got Orioles game and baseball practice, but maybe Friday will be the next time you guys see us. But Jason, thanks again, as always, for joining us. Appreciate you. Guys, if you want to check out what he's doing, go to DRAFTPLEX. What is it? I know it's a weird handle there, right?
At DRAFTPLEX on Twitter, and then NFLDraftPlex.com.
There we go. And you can find all
Jason, you always get me super excited about the draft, man. Thank you so much. I feel like I've really gotten excited after this show to see, just to look at the potential the Ravens have even at 27. And then, of course, in the second round. Thank you so much for hopping on. But that's it for us tonight, folks.
We'll talk to you soon. See ya.